The standard is the standard. So if you're going to kick off Big Ten Media Days, you better do it right. And we're going to start at the very top with Ohio State head coach Ryan Day. I am Austin Ward. That is Jeremy Birmingham. We are at the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, the heart of Big Ten country.
Yeah, I guess.
How weird is this? I mean, obviously this is your 8th or 6th, 7th as a head coach,
yeah.
right? To do this in Las Vegas, does it feel out of place?
Well, the first year in Chicago, it was neat being in Chicago. You know, you're kind of in the heart of Big Ten country. The venue that they had it at the hotel was a little tight in there. You were kind of bumping into each other. And then we moved it to Indy. I felt like it was good. It was more spacious. It was centrally located. And then, so it was good. I thought that was a great location for it. I guess changing it up is good. It's a longer trip for us, but we'll make it work.
It needs to be back there. I think there was an issue with the convention that was going on there, and it'll be back soon, hopefully, because Indianapolis is way better for all of us. But I love when we get to this point, and it's right before training camp, and to talk to you about, sort of the off-the-field stuff. We're going to have plenty of time on July 31st to get into the roster, and we will. But what struck me the most, Ryan, was last Tuesday or Wednesday, like before the British Open, Scotty Scheffler was talking about, what's it like to win something? You work your whole life to go win the Masters, and then, your wife and son come out, and you got to pick somewhere to go to dinner, and you move on. And I thought about our conversation in February where you were already counting down the days to Texas. I just don't know how I can relate to that mindset where you've worked your whole life to become a national champion. You move on to the next thing. Scotty Scheffler wins a major. I celebrate for 4 minutes. Did you hear that? Did it ring a bell, resonate with you?
I thought about retweeting it. I didn't. I watched it 2 or 3 times because there were so many things in that resonated with me. I think the thing that resonated with me the most was, you work your entire life to get to a certain point, win a national championship, and you have this vision of what it's going to look like. What you don't really envision is kind of like the next day and the next week of like the fact that like it literally is just what's next. I was just watching an interview the other day, an older interview about somebody was talking about how the Thunder just won the NBA Finals, and the next sentence they were talking about the NBA draft. It's just, life goes on. And so I think the thing that resonated with me in terms of like his mindset was though, like there has to be a bigger purpose personally. And so winning is something you have to do at Ohio State. If you don't win, they're going to find a new coach. If you don't win championships, eventually they're going to find a new coach. They're going to find new players. So it's our responsibility to make sure that we're reaching that standard. But winning just allows us to continue to do what we love, and that's have an impact on young people.
Yeah.
And that has got to be the focus, because at the end, no one's going to talk about the trophies and the championships. They're going to talk about the impact you leave behind, the legacy that you're leaving behind with these young people. And I think the biggest compliment I get is when people come up to me and they talk to me about the type of people that we have. Coaches, staff, but obviously the players.
I wondered if, so in February, because as you said, you're shifting into recruiting, spring camp is coming, you're going to have to replace the roster, you're dealing with NIL situations, like maybe the roster building part is like, well, it's easier for you to turn the page. If you had 3 weeks of vacation and you go with the kids and you spend time with Nina, if there was any part of that summer where it's like, well, maybe there is a chance to enjoy this and turn it off for a little bit. But I don't know if that's how you felt or not.
Well, the way I felt was on January 21st, I felt like we were in major catch-up mode. I felt like we were way behind the 8 ball for a lot of reasons. One, the portal opened up on our team for 5 days when everybody else in the country, it was closed.
Yeah.
And so, that was, we lost 7 guys there. And then we can't replace them. We worked hard to retain our roster. We didn't have anybody leaving the second portal, which was great. But I felt like we were constantly in catch-up mode, and I felt like if you get to the national championship game and that window is going to continue to be the same in terms of the transfer portal, it really puts you behind the 8 ball. And some people say, well, that's part
first
of
world problem.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's part of going that far, but like doesn't mean that it's fair. Like it wouldn't happen like that in the NFL. So regardless of whether it's us or somebody else, I think that the portal should be after that. But then we were able to get away a little bit in February, but it was a scramble. Then right into spring practice. After spring practice was over, you're right into recruiting. We did spend some time together and got away on a bunch of trips here and there. July was the most down for us, but But it's, the off season's obviously now shorter, which means it's shorter time, but also there's just more jammed into that time.
Is there a moment, do you think, that you'll be able to look back and just say, oh my gosh, we did that? I mean, is that something that you do now? Is it something that happens 20 years from now? When do you get a chance to contemplate what you guys actually accomplished? Because here we are, it's start of the new season.
I know.
We're ready, and it feels like it was yesterday. And as you said, you get back from Atlanta on January 21st, and you're immediately in meetings with your team of guys saying, well, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
And I mean, is there any point where you, A, want to pull your hair out, or B, is it just exhaustion?
Both. Yeah, both. I mean, it's.
Is that why you have to dye your hair?
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, right. But I think it's all the above. I think there are times where you take a deep breath, you think back, you look at it, and you're able to recognize the fact that you did go on this run, and it's about the joy for all the people that were involved in it. It took everybody, right? I mean, it does. When you make a run like that, that's probably the thing that I realized the most during this run, is that it takes everybody involved, all the way from the recruiting to the people in that building, to the players, to their family, to the people in Columbus, to you guys, to the people who aren't in Columbus, who are traveling out to LA, and all the different people that are involved to make that run. And so we need everybody. And when you travel around the country, you recognize the fact that so many people have just come up and said, thank you. Thank you for hanging in there and showing perseverance and building great young men, but also putting that run together and providing us all those great memories. And that's the time when you really recognize what you've done. And I think that brings fulfillment, going back to Scheffler, that's what this is all about, and I think that's where, I know me personally, my family and the players and the coaches, we know what the responsibility is here. We know how much this means to so many people. So that's our responsibility to bring it every single day. So once that's over and the confetti hits the ground, we got to go do it again, because that's the expectation. Not that it's easy, but that's the job.
So let's consider today the unofficial end of last season, right? Or the complete, we're all moving forward now. What's the goal? What's the motto today? What is the lesson that you're hoping to impart or to get through to people at Media Day 2025 with you and Sonny and JJ?
Well, it's about these guys, and it's about this team. We'll talk about, what the season goals will be next week when we all, really start the full camp. But the first goal is to win the first game. And because it's such a monster game, that's where the focus is going to be. And then we'll get a lot of feedback coming off of that game. And then we grow and build and make adjustments from there as the season goes on. But the good news is there's a lot of guys in that locker room that have seen what it takes. Doesn't mean that they've done it before. They're inexperienced. They're going to have to learn from it. But I don't think that there's one message other than it's about this team and it's about this journey this season. And we have to be able to, get guys to grow up quickly, because that's one of the things that we worked on this summer. One of our goals was grow up. We've got to get more mature fast. And then, go attack this first game. And this month is going to be different than it was last year. The month of August last year, there was, 3 non-conference games, but there wasn't one like this.
Yeah.
So if there was things along the way that we had to improve, it wasn't going to cost us a game.
Sure.
It can cost you a game here. It can come down to one play. So the level of attention to detail really started about a month ago. And it's ramping up to now, and we have to have a huge August.
As a coaching staff, you've had these sort of games to start the season before, 3 years ago against Notre Dame.
Yep.
And now back to this one against Texas. Do you prefer this, or do you like having the lead in for the month of September to the end?
I think now that we're into the 12-team playoffs, and I do think once we hopefully get to 16, and I think we should have 4 automatic qualifiers, I've said that, then a game like this is great, because it gives you a parameter early on of where we are. If we're not going to have those automatic qualifiers, it's a little risky, quite honestly, because in the Big Ten we have 9 conference games.
Yep.
And I think what some people don't realize is that it isn't just about that one extra game that you could win or lose. It's, let's say you're playing a team, you get that win, but down the road they play that 9th game and they get a loss in that last game. Well, now that loss, maybe that win doesn't look as good as it did before.
Right.
So you're not comparing apples to apples here. So when you throw in a 10th one like this, hey, it's going to be a monster year. We like it for the fans. We like it for our guys right out of the gate. I mean, it's going to be all attention on Columbus, which is great. But that is what it is. The schedule's been made. Now we're going to go attack it.
It's frustrating to be in a sport that isn't requiring every league to play by the same guidelines.
Yeah, don't get me started on all that.
I think you're going to have plenty of opportunity the rest of the day to get asked about that. Right. You mentioned, this experience, Chicago, then going to Indy. You're now in your 7th Big Ten Media Day, or 6th, I guess, minus COVID. It was 4 years ago tomorrow when you said, in 5 years, you're going to wake up and you're not going to recognize college football. Yeah. I will never forget it. I wish you'd been wrong.
Was that 4 years ago?
It was 4 years ago tomorrow. So we still got one more year, but I already don't recognize it. You're in it, and I know that you could answer this probably 1,000 different ways. How do you manage that as a coach when the rules are shifting and you wake up not just 5 years from now, but the next day or July 1st, and the entire rules of engagement have changed across the sport?
I think back on that, and I think I was right and I was wrong. I think the area that I was wrong was the game on the field really doesn't look much different. I think it's actually better than it's ever been. I think the 12-team playoff is really great and all those things. To me, where I don't recognize any of it is off the field. When you look at all the different things that are going on right now, it's just, and when you say rules, like one of the big part of that is enforcing the rules.
Yeah, sure.
And, I think it gets to the point where people just are tired of hearing it. So they just kind of push it over here and say, just let me get to the game. Let me watch what's on TV. And we're left with with the hands we're dealt. And we have to figure out how to make this work.
Sure.
And it's frustrating, yes, but we're going to continue to try to push forward and figure out where Ohio State needs to be in order to continue to be a leader moving forward. And I think that's very, very important. It isn't just going to happen. We've got to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of how we continue to separate ourselves. And I think we're well positioned, but it's something that is very, very important right now with all the changes going on.
If you go back to 2022, when the NIL stuff really started, there was a moment when Ohio State seemed to be tepid compared to what other schools were doing. And I think a lot of fans now see that and go, well, they're doing it again. But it looked to me, in hindsight, that you guys were proven right with your approach over the last couple of years. How confident are you that you will be proven right again?
You try to do the best you can to adjust with the times, but also, every school, I said this before, it's like driving a car and the speed limit's 45 miles an hour. Like, how fast do you want to go over that speed limit? 46, 47?
Yeah.
48?
I set my cruise control at 4 miles per hour over, and then I just leave.
Well, then you're probably pretty safe.
Yeah.
But if you're rolling at 70 miles an hour.
But you're still technically breaking the law, Birm.
It's true.
You're going to get there faster, but you might get pulled over along the way. I think that's where everyone's trying to assess how fast they want to go. And, I think when you look back, we've been aggressive, but we also aren't going to be reckless. And so we have to figure out where that balance is.
All right, we have time for one more before Mike and Jerry have to take you on to about 7 more hours of interviews. We asked for questions to the Austin Birm Show at gmail.com. This came from Ryan, and it was just about how you feel like he's impressed that you got a sitting offensive coordinator in Tyler Bowen to become an offensive line coach. You look back at Chip Kelly a year ago, the success you had hiring Jim Knowles, obviously, but then having to replace him. You did that with Matt Patricia. The way that your hiring process has evolved from earlier in your career, because I think, you can look at everybody goes through ups and downs. I think you seem to have tapped into something, and you're a first-time head coach. It's probably you have to learn by failure sometimes. How has it evolved?
I think one of the best things about the start of my career at Ohio State as the head coach was that I was able to take over for Urban. I think one of the biggest challenges I had was taking over for Urban. There was a lot that went there. And so trying to figure out, one, your own voice, but continue the things that were so successful with what he did, but then also the personnel part of it. And I think the thing that I've learned is being very thorough with the hiring process. Interview as many people as you possibly can. Don't rush into it. It's not worth hiring the wrong guy over a recruit or two. Mm-hmm. And so, just really, and not worry so much about maybe the public perception of a hire. It just makes sure you have the right guy, because if you don't have the right guy, it's not good. And so I've, really tried to learn from that and just, ask a lot of questions, interview these guys and figure out what's the right fit, and then trust your instinct in the end.
I think the perception part that you mentioned there is interesting, because as I sat here in February and was like, well, this is what people think about Matt Patricia. I've never met him. But if Ryan Day went through however many interviews, talked to all the people that he knows. I don't imagine he's bringing in someone who doesn't fit the culture or the brotherhood. So maybe let's have an open mind on that, because I was surprised by it.
Yep.
But then that perception was not. Again, it's not reality.
No. And talk to the guys.
Yeah.
Talk to the players. Talk to the coaches. Talk to the recruits. He's been just great with them, and I think his personality is really showing. And I think this is a great opportunity for him to show that part of it. And whatever has happened in the past, but we really vetted that a lot and looked into it and felt like it was a great hire. Now we got to go put it on the field. I'm excited to see what it looks like, but he's very, very intelligent too. I think that's the other part. And he's got a great background with what he's done. So he's bringing a lot of qualities that, our guys are recognizing and a lot of value.
At what point did you decide this is my program? And you, as you said, taking over for Urban is a challenge.
Yep.
Was there a moment, do you remember it, when you're like, I need to do what is best for Ryan Day's Ohio State football team?
I think it gradually happened over those years, where you have to make sure you continue with what you have, because it's been successful, and then don't just change it to change it. And I think that's a part of also having security in the fact that okay, I'm not just going to change everything because this is my program now. I think slowly doing that over time and not letting your ego get in the way of that was a challenge, and not just tearing down all the slogans. We still use so much of what Urban did and the culture because it works.
So does Rutgers.
Yeah, well, because it worked.
Yeah.
And so I think that was part of it. But along the way, you have your own voice. You make decisions along the way that work and some that don't. You have to reevaluate it every year.
All right. I didn't know that we were going to get some strays
Is
from
it
Chris
hard to
Ash
be
and Greg Schiano on the
is it
show.
hard
But
to be a slogan guy? Do you have to create slogans? Do you have to sit around at home sometimes on the weekend? I need to come up
You
with
try
a
to figure out
slogan.
what fits, and what guys can remember, and then what they're going to believe in.
Yeah.
all right, a lot more interviews to come for Ryan Day out here in Las Vegas. Again, the heart of Big Ten country. We appreciate him starting it off right here with us on the beat for 10 TV, 97.1 The Fan, 10 TV Plus, and anywhere you can get your podcasts on audio platforms. Thank you so much, Ryan. Enjoy the rest of this day. I know it's your favorite day of the year.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you got it, brother.
All right, we'll be back with a lot more coverage coming to you from Las Vegas, from Big Ten Media Days. Thanks for joining us. He's Birm, I'm Austin. So long.